welcome to a new episode of the Mad Black Dad podcast. And there's a new study out that's saying parenting is bad. I'm kind of putting a slant on it. It's not bad, but it's definitely affects your health. Put a Surgeon General warning um, that parenting is essentially affecting people's health. And that means a lot to me as a dad because, that's exactly what I'm doing, parenting. Two kids. Let's see. Let's take a look at what they said, right? Parents of children under 18 report higher levels of stress than other adults. Surgeon General is raising awareness about this program and a new advisory on parenting mental health. One solution might be for parents to push back against intensive parenting practices. I find that extremely interesting. So, what is intensive parenting practices? Intensive parenting means that essentially, we're going to, kind of shorthand it a little bit, but intensive parenting essentially means that everything that we do, we tie that back into teaching our children something. So, if we are watching a show, we pause the show and then we teach them about what's happening in the show. We're reading a book and then, okay, we stop and try to learn the lesson that was happening in the book. We want to go vote because it's it's election season, right? We take our kids to the maybe to the campaign trail, maybe to rallies or speeches. We take them with us to go vote. If we are engaging in any type of civic duty, we're bringing our kids with us so that they can see what that's like. If we're doing community service, we are making our kids come with us to do the community service as well. And these are the things that essentially make what intensive parenting intensive. And I coach Dom's baseball season or his baseball team over the summer. So not only am I the coach, but I'm also his coach, as opposed to letting him play on some other team. And then everything that we do outside of that is also, somehow I'm going to tie that back into baseball. Or I'm going to tie that back into growth or education or whatever. So it's really, like the word says, intensive. And it's also intentional. But I guess it could also be stressful. 48% of parents say that most of their days, what is it? 48% of parents say most days their stress is completely overwhelming compared to 26% of others. 62% of parents say that no one understands how stressed they are compared to 42%. I'm assuming these are 42% of non parents. And I actually think that some of this just simply makes a lot of sense. I can't really debate it just because if I have kids, which I do, and you don't have kids or you know somebody that doesn't have kids, they just simply can't relate to the same stress. They can't relate to the same stress. We just found out that Dom is reading at a sixth grade level. He's in second grade. So what does that look like? That's a stress all on its own. We have two kids. One is 7, one is 2. We're talking about childcare. We're talking about education. We're talking about summer programs. We're talking about after school activities. We're coordinating schedules. Who's gonna pick up who when? How do they get home? What are they gonna have for dinner? What are we gonna have for dinner? Do we get to do anything on our own, or is our entire life based around our kids? These are simply parenting stressors that people that don't have kids don't have to worry about. So yes, I think it makes a whole bunch of sense that you can't relate because damn it, you can't relate. You just can't relate. You could, think about it. Well, I could imagine that would be difficult, and I could imagine, and yeah, that makes 1,000% sense. So I don't know. I think that this modern parenting is bad for your health. I don't know. I do think that parenting can be stressful in a lot of different ways. I don't always feel like it's chronic stress though, because some of these things come and go. Like I may not have to worry about what they're gonna eat. Not to say that there's no food in the house. We have plenty of food, but just the simple process of like making dinner or deciding what we're going to eat for dinner. Okay, that can be a little bit of stress, but that comes and goes. But the needs being met is not so much of a stressor for me and my household, but it can be a stressor for somebody else's household. Um, so yeah, I think a lot of these like chronic stressors, which I think they're trying to put that on parenting, I think some of that definitely comes and goes. But I think overall, yeah, it definitely provides a different amount of stress that people that don't have kids really don't have to worry about. So, I think it's just interesting. But I think the most interesting things that the Surgeon General has put out, this alert and this warning that parenting can truly, affect your mental health, your physical health, and essentially your life. And I think that part is scary. Um, I think back in the day for me, is late '90s, early 2000s. Um, it I have to assume that my mother was stressed, and also my mother was stressed in a way that my father wasn't stressed because they they split. So my mother's stresses as a parent is separate from my dad's stressors. But I know that I was outside doing what I had to do. I was playing football. I was playing sports. By and large, got to come and go as I pleased. Um, so this intensive part that we're doing now, where I'm looping my kids into every single thing I do, that didn't really happen when I was growing up. At least not in my household. I can imagine that some other parents in other households were much more intensive, if we're gonna keep using that word, than mine were. I do think they tried to, and this is of course not to shit on my parents in any way, shape, or form. Um, but they just didn't do this intensive thing. So I think when they're talking about intensive parenting, that's something that's popped up. I have to believe in like the last, maybe even just say 5 to 10 years. I'm not seeing exactly when we started using this phrase in the report. Maybe there's some other source that will definitely cite it. I'm on Psychology Today, reading this as we go over it. But I think it's something to really consider, and maybe just sit down with our parents and talk about like, hey, what did you think about intensive parenting, or their parenting styles? Because I definitely recall being very free, being very loose with like restrictions, especially I'd have to say maybe around like 12. And at that point, my parents were even still together. I still felt pretty free to do as I pleased at 12, and they weren't inviting me into a whole bunch of things that they did. When I was younger, we read together. But by the time I'm able to like choose what I wanted to watch and things like that, we probably weren't really watching it as a family. I know my dad was not necessarily playing video games with me, so I got by on whatever it is that I wanted to do. And then of course by the time I hit high school, I'm hitting the ground running. Okay, well, it's after school. I'm out. So this intensive thing, I don't know how long it worked out for me. If it was even a thing, but I look to my friends who have kids that are around my age, but also have kids that are like in college and in high school. What do they look like that as? So I think what I want to do is bring somebody else on and revisit this really soon to see, you know, redefine intensive parenting for them and see how that is really affecting them. Um, because I think it's really interesting that they're now putting out this thing to say, hey, parenting can kill you. Parenting can make you sick. Parenting is bad, and yet I love it. I love parenting. I wouldn't change, this for the world. I would always be a dad. I'm tapped out at 2 kids, but um, I don't find it stressful in a way that it's like my health is deteriorating. I guess maybe it's weathering me and it's just kind of chipping away at me slowly. I don't know, but I do feel stress. I don't feel it in a way that is damaging to me. I think that type of stress comes from many of other things that simply does not have to do with my children. Um, but hey, maybe I'm wrong. So anyway, I really just wanted to come in and jump in and talk about this lightly, and I'm gonna deep dive into this later with some friends and some family, and really talk about like what is parenting really killing us? I don't think so, but somebody else might. So this was just a quick one. I wanted to introduce this topic in case you all have heard of it or not heard of it, and we are definitely gonna double back so we can deep dive in it. So thank you for listening. I'll be back very very soon with more people to talk about this.